Just when it looks like Kido is about to kill everyone, Hitomi goes through a monstrous transformation, revealing her true therianthrope form. In my review of last week's episode, I made a joke about Hitomi going Super Saiyan, but I didn't expect that it was actually going to happen in this episode. We get to see that she has her very own super-powered form, her full origin form. Why is it called the origin form? That's because we get to learn in this episode that Hitomi has not been genetically modified. She is a natural therianthrope, a perfect hybrid of human and animal DNA, and that's why Reichi Shido is so obsessed with her, maybe to the point where he sees her as a daughter, but also because he knows that within her body somewhere lies the secrets of the therianthropes. So we get to see that she has not even started quite yet, and unfortunately this episode we don't get to see her full battle with Kido, who is a massive pangolin man of pain. But we do get to see some cool action with him fighting against Tiger, not to mention Hippopotamus as well. And it's absolutely bloody and over the top and all sorts of awesome. But most of this episode is actually dedicated to the backstory of Hitomi. And honestly, I was really excited to see this, and it completely paid off. It took up, I think, maybe too much of the episode, but for what it was super important, getting to learn about the origins of Hitomi. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of those action scenes at the beginning of this episode. So Kido is here, he's completely commanding in battle, his pangolin body is essentially like a giant armored form which is covered in knives, and nothing in the natural world can actually break through it. Maybe Hitomi will be able to pull that off, but considering how powerful Tiger is and he couldn't even make a dent in this guy, that's saying a lot. The armor, of course, he could not pierce. There are vulnerable parts of Kido's body, and believe it or not, he does actually get gravely injured in this episode, but it comes at the cost of Tiger losing his freaking arm. What's really cool about Kido is that, like an actual pangolin, he can roll up into a ball, which basically makes him indestructible. There's nothing that can actually break through his armor, and you have Tiger who's constantly trying to slash him, and then suddenly, while he's rolled up into a ball, a little hole opens up, Tiger throws his paw in there, and then it shuts closed, starts to spin, and Tiger loses his arm. Just like that. Now, any other character would immediately give up. They lost their arm. They know they're not going to win, but Tiger will fight until he dies, and he continues to fight back. But right as he's about to be defeated, the giant hippopotamus just comes in and linebackers the frickin' pangolin right in the face and shows that even though he might not be as tough, he can still match him in power. But this is when the tragedy just begins, as it really means nothing because the pangolin is able to impale both the hippopotamus and the tiger with his massive tail, basically ending their portion of this tournament. It doesn't look like they're going to survive. Erza claims that she's faster than their brother and is going to defend her, but that's when Hitomi comes in her brand new awakened form, which is basically just more white fur, more wild looking hair, and she has this grin on her face which never seems to go away, which is both exciting and kind of friggin' terrifying. So, now that we've seen this new form, we gotta learn a little bit about it, and that's where we get the backstory of Hitomi, where we get to see that 7 years ago in Hong Kong, she actually lived on the streets as some sort of weird animal hybrid human. The locals actually called her Chu Shen, and this is when Shido was after her. He knew that she existed, he just didn't know where to find her, and when he finally discovers her stealing some food, over the course of this entire backstory, little by little, he starts to meet her, give her food, try to warm up to her, and build something of a relationship with her. The problem is she doesn't know how to communicate and she acts like a wild animal, and every single time he decides to give her food or any sort of gift of some kind, she basically just bites, scratches, or beats the crap out of him, takes the stuff, and runs away. But little by little, their relationship does start to build and become something more of like a father-daughter type relationship. And Shido himself, in this episode, is so different than the one that we actually see currently in the series, who comes across as a little more jaded and dark. Here, he seems a little more hopeful for the future of what these therianthropes can actually bring to mankind. I have a feeling there's going to be something in the story which sort of darkens his character to a certain degree. But he's also accompanied by his assistant Shibiyama, this one big guy, and of course Shinozaki, who's the announcer of the Killing Bites tournament, who is an amazing fighter. So not only is she just an over-the-top announcer, but she can kick some ass too, which is really awesome. But Shibiyama is sick of Shido just waiting around, so he decides to shoot Hitomi with a tranquilizer, which causes her to run off in a fit of rage. And when wild animals are hit with a trank, they're incredibly vulnerable. And it just so happens that because she's a wild animal that's been stealing food from people, she's also run afoul of the local mafia, and when they find her body on the ground, they basically get ready to just completely beat her to death. That's when Shinozaki and Shido and Shibiyama show up and they try to save the day, and even Reichi, Shido, like, he's like hanging out over Hitomi's body while he's getting beaten by this mafia, and this is sort of the moment where Hitomi finally starts to connect with him, and they finally start to have like a real relationship with one another. I want to see more of that, but I'm also really excited that right after this we immediately got right back to the action with Hitomi going up against the pangolin. Now, there is one thing that I never mentioned, and this is probably what's going to be very helpful in Hitomi actually battling against Kido. Tiger was actually able to rip out the right eye of Kido. He was fast enough and he used the hippopotamus as a means to do that. So this is going to give Hitomi a massive freaking advantage in sneaking around this guy and moving really fast, and she does so in so many cool casual ways. She's so fast that he can't keep up, but I love the final shot where she's actually like just sitting casually on his tail, and she's so excited over the prospect of fighting against an opponent who's really strong, can take a lot of damage, because now she can truly have some fun. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Killing Bites? This was an awesome episode right here. I love that we finally got some backstory on Hitomi, as I wanted to learn a little bit more about that. I didn't know that she was going to end up being like this important to the show in terms of her being like the origin of this species. Maybe not the very first Therian throat, but at least one in the world that's easily obtainable, and that alone makes her pretty interesting. Her entire backstory of being in Hong Kong and being this like wild creature that lives on the streets is not what I expected. It was subtly hinted at in the intro of the show, but I really liked the way that it was handled, especially with Shido himself, who, like I said, does come across as actually a caring individual in this backstory. He's going as far as to not only treating her like an animal, but a human at the same time, and even reading books about how to take care of families and everything. So getting to see that dynamic actually play out is surprising, and I didn't expect it from Killing Bites, as this is a show that's basically all about the TNA, the blood, and the gore. But no, this one was actually a pretty good backstory right here, and I'm really just hyped to see more of her transformed state going up against Kido. Kido in this episode was just awesome, by the way. Even though there wasn't as much action with the characters and the story that's going on in the present, everything that was there was really freaking awesome. I mean, the fact that he's basically just like a giant armor of knives makes him immediately terrifying, but like, the moment where the tiger's like arm got ripped off was so fast and swift, it was just disturbing, and seeing him getting ready to continue to fight was just as awesome. I didn't expect Hippopotamus to show up and really start saving the day, but it was a cool moment when he was going toe-to-toe with him. It was like a freaking kaiju battle, just these two super huge dudes just like slamming into each other, but to no avail. Kido just uses his hail to just like stab through everyone, and honestly, I don't know how Tiger is gonna survive. I mean, he got completely impaled all the way through his stomach. Hippopotamus got hit on the side, and there's a good chance that he could still survive, but after losing an arm and getting impaled, I mean, he's gonna bleed out, right? But then again, this is an anime. He'll probably survive somehow. What I will say is they're doing a great job of making Kido seem really unstoppable, and it was a great way to give us an excuse to see Hitomi in her transformed state, which is simple, but still looks really awesome. I love that the fur goes completely white and her hair just goes so freaking wild. Her eyes tend to glow just a little bit more in that big grin. Wow, it's just scary and awesome. I can't wait to see more of it. Speaking of scary expressions, how about the scene where Yoko started to go crazy on everyone when she realized how powerful Kido was and how she basically believes that she's won this Killing Bites? What I love about this scene is sort of the hypocrisy of it, because she herself is trying to bring honor back to her Zaibatsu clan, and the fact that her grandfather has turned into this evil, lecherous person. But by the end of the scene, she basically becomes her grandfather, especially with that weird, creepy expression, with her laughing and enjoying just the pain of everyone with her tongue hanging out. It was a ridiculous moment, and you can add that to the list of all the ridiculous Yoko expressions that you have actually gotten from this show. So, yeah, this was another great package. It was definitely a build-up, but it was a good build-up because there was a lot of new things that we haven't seen. We finally got the backstory of Hitomi, and we got some pretty cool, awesome, arm-ripping, eyeball-scratching out action. It was just crazy stuff, exactly what I want from the show, and I got to learn a little bit more about the pangolin, which again is like an animal that I just don't know that much about. And one of the cool things about Killing Bites is not only is it really hardcore, fun, action-packed, but it's educational as well, but probably the type of show I wouldn't recommend for children. So yeah, fun episode right here. Loved the backstory. The production value in some parts could have looked a little better, and I don't like that they rely a little too much on CG animation, but for the most part, everything looks awesome. This is a great show. It's worth your time. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but it's great, fun, popcorn anime entertainment. Check it out, guys. I'm giving this episode a 4 out of 5. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. You can tell me all of them in the comments section below. Let's get a discussion going about this episode and what we hope to see in the big battle between Hitomi and Kido. So thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.